Joe Burrow is out for an extended period and he needs surgery. We'll talk about the ramifications for the Bengals here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen. I am Tony Wiggins, the host of the Locked On NFL Barbershop. It comes on each afternoon, and it follows Locked On NFL early in the morning with Tyler Rowland. As usual, I'm joined on Mondays by my co-host Julian Council from Locked On Panthers. What we're going to do is take you for a ride around the NFL and talk about the biggest stories as we do each and every day as credentialed members of the media, to give you a little bit of what is going on with each market with the use of local experts. All right, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a rundown where we're going to end up. I just want to let you know that wherever you get your podcast, you can get us there each and every day, whether you watch or listen. And shout out to the everydayers, of course, that join us here on Locked On NFL. The Colts are the surprise team of the NFL. We're going to talk about them and the Falcons in segment 3. In the middle, concerned in KC about the Chiefs and why I think it's a tad bit overblown, but it's real. We're going to start the show at the very top talking about the biggest story, breaking news this morning. Joe Burrow needs surgery for turf toe. They thought initially that it would not require all of that, but it looks like it's on the worst side of it, so they're expecting him out at least 3 months. In fact, Julian, before I even come to you, I'll play what James Rapine said about it not too long ago from Locked On Bengals, and then we'll come back with our commentary.
Bengals fans' biggest fear, well, it crept out its ugly head, and unfortunately, Joe Burrow could miss the entire 2025 season. Hi again, everyone. I'm James Rapine from the Locked On Bengals podcast, and Joe Burrow will miss a minimum of 3 months as the toe injury he suffered on Sunday against the Jaguars means that he's going to have surgery. And only like 2% of people that suffer turf toe injuries need surgery. Joe is one of those people, and it's really, really unfortunate. Obviously, for Joe, you're talking about a third major surgery in 6 seasons. Half of his seasons could ultimately end with a surgical procedure. You had the knee when he was a rookie. You had the wrist a few years ago. You have the toe now. So hopefully it isn't season ending. But even if it's not, you're talking about a team that's not going to have Joe Burrow for 11 games minimum, maybe more. Awful, awful news that we're going to break down throughout the day here on the Locked On Bengals podcast. Check us out wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube.
Julian, I'm going to hit to you real quick. Bad news, but recurring news, almost to the point where you start to expect Joe Burrow to be hurt right now, and that's bad for him and the Bengals.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And if the timeline is going to be 3 months, we're looking at not until week 15 at home against Baltimore being the next time we see Joe Burrow out there on the field. And it sucks. Like, I was watching this game, flipping around during the 1 o'clock window of Carolina having their 4 o'clock game against Arizona. And I was watching at the time, and he was under siege. The Jags defensive line was all over them in the first half, and Joe went down, and it seemed to just be a fairly normal sack. Didn't see anything that looked like he would have hurt his knee or his ankle. So to see him get up so gingerly, like, obviously that was concerning. And then for him to be walking back to the locker room and have to put his arms around the trainers, it's like, damn, what's going on with Joe Burrow? And now hearing this, like, I hate it for Cincinnati. Like, the good thing is they're off to a 2-0 start. And I saw this earlier this morning from Adam Schefter that over the last 6 seasons through weeks 1 and 2, they've only won 1 game before this season, and now they're 2-0. So typically they're in a hole by being 0-2 or being 1-1. This time around, they're in a hole because their quarterback is not out there. And I saw some commentary last night when watching SportsCenter. Scott Van Pelt and Tim Hasselbeck was talking about how they don't have a better backup quarterback than Jake Browning. If you look back to 2 years ago when Browning had to step in there, now QB wins is not a step, but the team was 4-3 when he was out there. And I was looking over at True Media just now to see how he played back then. During weeks 12 through 18, those 7 games that he started, he actually had the 10th best passer rating among quarterbacks at that point in time. His EPA per dropback was also top 10. So it wasn't like Jake Browning didn't go out there and give them some help. And even looking over at success rate, that was 14th. So the Bengals can win some games with him. The unfortunate thing is the games that they've already won with Burrow, then with Browning on Sunday, or against the Browns, and no offense against the Jaguars. There's going to be far better opponents you have to play the rest of the season. It would have been a lot better had they beaten Baltimore or Buffalo or somebody like that the first 2 weeks, and then they're going to Browning with still Jacksonville and Cleveland left on the schedule. So I think that they can get by with Jake Browning, but by no means is this the team now that's going to be contending for the AFC North without Joe Burrow. And we'll see if he comes back at all this season. Just, yeah, terrible news for the Bengals. Terrible news really for the league for him to be out yet again.
Yeah, it is bad news. And Jaguar fans know who Jake Browning is because Jake Browning beat Jacksonville on Monday night before. And this is when Trevor Lawrence got hurt. I think it was 2023. And he stepped in yesterday and did the same thing. Teams are just going to play him differently. You made a point. Joe Burrow was under siege. The Jaguars were playing zone, and they were coming after him. When Jake Browning came into the game, the last thing you want to do is give those little zone softballs to a dude that knows he's not trying to extend plays. That's going to let it go. So they did a lot of man-to-man, and he burnt them with that too. Less talented guy, make him process the information quicker and make him make a tougher throw. No problem. He did it. So the confidence level in him from Bengal fans should be at least okay. And hopefully they can get Joe Burrow back and still be hanging around. There's a little bit of a side argument that's going on around here. There's somebody that's posting the Penei Sewell pictures, a little graph, like this is why they should have taken Penei Sewell. And I want to squash that here on this national show.
Wow.
Right tackle wasn't where they were beaten. Left tackle wasn't necessarily where they were beaten yesterday. Eric Armstead, who made the sack, came up the middle. And protection is more than one player. Just because they could have gotten Penei Sewell doesn't mean that their line would have been good at the other four spots. It's not like Jamar Chase is an all-world. I think that's a lazy thing to say. Chase has been in the league. He's on his second contract. They had 4 years to fix their offensive line, and they didn't.
Yeah,
so it's silly.
That's crazy to me. I mean, I looked at the draft that night, and I felt like Cincinnati, knowing that Joe Burrow is coming off of a torn ACL, that they should go get Penei Sewell.
Sure.
Obviously, they got it right by getting Jamar Chase, and maybe they would have gotten it right had they gone with Penei Sewell because he's obviously been outstanding for the Lions playing at right tackle, and I'm guessing he probably would have been the left tackle had he gone to Cincinnati. But you're right. They've had multiple years. It was 2021 when he was drafted. They've had plenty of time to address the offensive line. They've done it, and then they've also not done a great job at points and times, and that's part of having to pay Joe Burrow a ton of money and T. Higgins a ton of money and also paying Jamar Chase a ton of money. Now Trey Hendrickson some money. You can only pay so many guys, and they've decided they're not going to invest heavily financially in the offensive line, and that kind of bit them in the ass yesterday as Joe went down. So we'll see what they're able to do. I think Jake Browning can be fine for them. Again, I don't think they're going to be an AFC North division title contender. They're going to be fighting for the wild card again, and absolutely going to need that defense to look better than it's looked so far this season. They might have won last week against Cleveland. They held on against Jacksonville, a game they probably shouldn't have won. The Jags definitely threw that one away, I feel like. But this can be a tough road to hoe now without Joe Burrow and with a defense that still very much is suspect.
Can be a tough road to hoe, and usually when teams start out 0-2 as opposed to 2-0, it's a tough road to hoe. And that's what Kansas City is right now, 0-2. And trust me, the natives are restless and the fangs are out. People are saying the Chiefs are done. I'll tell you why I believe that is a little overblown here in just a second on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by PrizePicks. It is that time of year, man. Daily fantasy is alive on PrizePicks, and it's the app where making the right call can actively pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right means cashing in. With football being back, PrizePicks is the simplest, fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes all in less than 60 seconds. Man, you got some good ones tonight. Will Justin Herbert go more or less than his player projection? That's the big question. You'll get a good chance to see that tonight in a doubleheader. Download the PrizePicks apps today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That code is LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. All right, moving and grooving with my main man, Julian Council, here on a Monday here on Locked On NFL. After week 2 of the action, we led off talking about Joe Burrow and the injury news in Cincinnati. Speedy recovery to Joe. He'll be out about 3 months. Maybe they can get him back by the end of the year. Kansas City, they're going to get some receivers back, hopefully here within the near future in Xavier Worthy. And then after 6 weeks, they'll get Rashee Rice back, and hopefully that'll calm people down about this team. But right now, the ire seems to be they're getting on the personnel department saying that this team isn't very good. Now, mind you, they lost the game in Brazil against the Chargers, and maybe that was unexpected. But a 3-point loss to the Eagles on a game where maybe your best player drops the key pass, I don't think that's cause for concern overall, because the Chiefs have played it close to the vest for the last couple of years at some point during the regular season. Here's Chris Clark from Locked On Chiefs.
The Kansas City Chiefs start the season 0-2. First time in Patrick Mahomes' career, he has 3 consecutive losses in his NFL career. Lot to talk about when we get to Locked On Chiefs later, but the reality of this situation is Patrick Mahomes can still do things. Doesn't have the greatest deep ball. Showed a couple of times against the Eagles. Hit a deep ball late to Tyquan Thornton. It was too little, too late. And that's the problem. The rest of the wide receivers really didn't do much. Juju Smith-Schuster didn't do much. Hollywood Brown had a couple of good catches, a couple of good plays. Tyquan Thornton had a couple of other good plays. But outside of that, obviously the biggest mistake and the thing that cost Kansas City a touchdown and maybe even potentially the win, Travis Kelce pops the ball up when he's getting ready to cross the goal line, gets intercepted by the Philadelphia Eagles. They run it back, get it fourth down conversion with the tush push for a touchdown, take a 2-score lead. Kansas City could not catch up. Much more to come on Locked On Chiefs.
All right, Julian, are you out on the Chiefs like everyone else seems to be, or is it just, okay, just relax, you ain't going to win them all the time?
No, I'm not going to be out on Kansas City. And I'll also say, this is not necessarily that surprising that they've started off 0-2. The NFL schedule makers did them absolutely no favors. And that's really been the case over the last couple of seasons. You look back to last year, having to play on Christmas Day. There's another midweek game they had to play because of the brand that they are. They don't always get the most favorable scheduling. And they're going to be playing marquee matchups early in the season when you're still trying to figure out who your team is and what you have. And when Xavier Worthy runs into Travis Kelce and gets injured, and Rashee Rice is out here being foolish off the field, you're put in a bad situation where you're going to Brazil, facing up against a good Chargers team. Then you're back home in a Super Bowl rematch. I hate that they say that. Super Bowl's already been played. There's no rematch. Nothing's going to change from what happened back in February. You can lose to Philadelphia because, again, they're a very good football team. Fortunately for them, they have the Giants coming up. Now, Russ was cooking. So we'll see. And the Giants are in desperation mode at 0-2 as well. But that game, you should win even on Sunday Night Football on the road. And then you got Baltimore. So there was always a strong possibility that they could lose their first 2 games, that they could lose 3 of their first 4 because of who they were playing. But that never was going to preclude them from getting things put back together, because Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. Now, I will say one thing about that's a red flag to me. When you're seeing Mahomes do the kind of thing he did against the Chargers, we had to do that shuffle pass out of desperation, and the things that we saw back there in that Super Bowl against Tampa Bay, when he's having to do these Herculean type of things, that's a red flag. That means he's having to do way too much, that he does not have things on time, in structure for him to just be Patrick Mahomes. Those are the things that make him great. But when he's having to do that, that's, things are bad for Kansas City. So we'll see if they get changed up. I'm not off of them. But I think they're going to probably have a tough time being the 1 seed. Congratulations, Buffalo, who has the easiest remaining schedule. This may actually be your year.
Yeah, and I was going to mention Buffalo because with everybody talking so poorly about the weapons. Well, you just mentioned it. One dude was drag racing in Dallas and could have killed people, okay? And Xavier Worthy got hurt by his own teammate, and his own teammate admitted it was his fault. I don't know what third receiver is supposed to look like in Kansas City, but I know there's some people in Buffalo that are saying, well, you look at what we have as receiver and we're not making excuses. Look at what Lamar Jackson has had all of these years and they're not making excuses, right? And I think there is something to be said that Mahomes has gotten used to having guys that are really, really good at wide receiver, and maybe because he's gotten used to it, that he has to adjust and do a little bit more when the guys he has aren't as good as those players. But your third receiver isn't supposed to be as good as Tyreek Hill was in his prime. He's like a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I think the problem, though, is since Tyreek left to go to Miami, all the receiving talent he has are basically number 2 at best, but 3 type of guys. Like Rashee Rice, I think he's a good player, but we still need to see way more out of him to know what he really is. Xavier Worthy, I don't think he's a number 1 receiver. Obviously, Juju Smith-Schuster was not that. Hollywood Brown, they barely had him. He's not that. They have not had great receiving talent there in KC. And I think a lot of it is Brett Veach thinking because they have Patrick Mahomes that maybe they don't need to spend as much because he can elevate those receivers. And hell, we saw Tom Brady do that throughout the course of his career. And yeah, we can compare Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes when you look at what they've been able to do so far during their career, or at least during Tom's and during Pat's career so far in the league. Like, they need to be far more invested in trying to bring in some receiving talent. Like, they may not always be at the top of the draft. I totally understand that. I mean, last year was a great receiver draft. They got Xavier Worthy. They traded up to get him. But did they get the best guy? Because I mean, there's guys like Lad McConkey out in not San Diego with the Chargers, who's a better player than Xavier Worthy, in my opinion. Like, Keon Coleman's solid. I mean, maybe Worthy's better than him, but certainly, like, they got to be way more invested. This was not necessarily the receiver draft to get somebody. As the best one is clearly McMillan after 2 weeks, and he went 8th overall. Kansas City is just not going to be drafting in the top 10, so it makes it difficult for them to do that, but they got to be better in their evaluations and be able to find guys that can come in and can be those plus type of players. I really don't think they've hit on a lot of the receivers since they lost Tyreek Hill, and that leads to these kind of issues. And again, you can't control what guys do out the field, which obviously does not help in this circumstance as well.
Yep, and that's the point that I was making, because I do think a healthy Rashee Rice is very good. Is he a top 8 receiver? No, but he's somewhere between 8 and 15, especially when you combine him with what they have. And then from what we saw of Xavier Worthy last year, look, he was coming into his second year. I get it. But your third receiver, okay, so you're down to your third receiver and you got an older tight end and you lost to the Super Bowl champion by 3 points. The season. My point is, the world doesn't end. Just hang on a little bit. And I know it's tough. Pittsburgh, I thought they were going to be better. They are okay on offense, but they have given up over 30 points in their first 2 games, and they're 1-1. And they played the Jets in week 1, and then yesterday they played Seattle. Listen to Chris Carter talk about their result.
Chris Carter here from the Locked On Steelers podcast with your post-game reaction to the Steelers' 31-17 loss at home to the Seattle Seahawks. The Steelers came out in this game, gave up an early touchdown, but seemed to adjust after that. The defense holding the Seahawks off the board for a bit until the offense was able to build a lead. But key mistakes cost the Steelers in this down the stretch. First, you had Aaron Rodgers' red zone interception where he threw a pass to what was an open Pat Freiermuth, but the ball gets tipped by the hand of Calvin Austin, and it winds up in the hands of a Seahawks defender in the end zone, killing the drive. And then also you have Caleb Johnson making an inexcusable mistake by a rookie on kick return, allowing the ball to bounce off his hands into the end zone on kick return and then be recovered by the Seahawks for a touchdown. Ultimately, those 2 plays flipped the momentum in the Seahawks direction. The Steelers defense still gave up too many chunk plays. I got to talk to players in the locker room, so we'll talk more about that on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Find us wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube.
A lot invested on their defense, and even though some of the problem with the 31 points wasn't all on defense, Chris just said there was enough of it against Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, looking at their defense right now, according to True Media, success rate, they are 31st in the league. Now, not everybody's played their 2 games because we have 2 games tonight on Monday Night Football, but that's not good. You look over at EPA, they are 29th. That is not what a Pittsburgh Steelers defense is supposed to be. And it's only been through 2 weeks, but the Jets were a disaster against Buffalo. And the Jets basically got whatever they wanted. And the only reason they lost that game was because of their own special teams miscue in week 1. And then yesterday, like Sam Darnold had 2 turnovers, which is par for the course because it's Sam Darnold, but they still got what they wanted. And it's a 3rd down and goal surrender run from like the 20 that they hand off to Kenneth Walker, and he scores a touchdown. Like those things just cannot happen in that game. So yeah, they got some real questions to ask themselves. Now, Derek Harmon, their 1st-round pick out of Oregon, hurt his knee in the final preseason game here in Carolina, and he's supposed to be a guy they're going to really lean on. Him not being out there does not help, but yeah, it's alarming with Pittsburgh because I only think the offense, even with Aaron Rodgers in there, can do so much this season. And being in the division that they're in, and it helps that Cincinnati does not have Joe Burrow for the time being. You just cannot have these kind of defensive issues, especially in the AFC. So, yeah, I'm concerned if I'm Pittsburgh and if I'm Mike Tomlin and everybody involved.
No doubt about it. I am too. I'm not as concerned about the Colts as I was coming into the season because, stop me, Danny Dimes looks like the truth. We're going to talk about Daniel Jones. He might even get an apology on this show in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, man, I was a barber for 34 years. And this show is sponsored by BetterHelp, and you could think that I worked for a counseling agency because people talk to me all the time about stuff I absolutely was not qualified to tell them about. I did the best I could, but not everyone is the right one when it comes to real support, and that's why BetterHelp is here. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 10 years of experience, BetterHelp helps you find your right match, someone clinically trained and credentialed to guide you through life's challenges. We're sponsored today by BetterHelp for a reason, because they have the ability to help you when you need help, and you can get in touch with the right people to help you through your problems. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Find the one with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. And today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Upside. Are you still paying full price for gas? You're crazy, man. You can save you some money. Stop leaving money behind and get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code TOUCHDOWN for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code TOUCHDOWN. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. All right, third and final segment here with my man Julian Council. We are going to take a look at a couple of more teams and then give you a quick rip around on some predictions for tonight's doubleheader. First, the Indianapolis Colts, man. I was on record talking about how bad I thought they were. I kind of put them in the Cleveland Browns and the New Orleans Saints categories. I didn't believe in the quarterback. I can't even believe they had a quarterback competition now between Anthony Richardson and Danny Dimes, because Daniel Jones is playing his butt off. He's got a rookie tight end helping him catch balls, too. Here's the guys from Locked On Colts.
You guys are 2-0. I mean, you're new to this, but this is the first time since 2009 they're 2-0. I mean, from what you can tell, what's the vibe in here from some of the older guys who've been through some of the low periods? What are you getting from what this locker room looks like right now?
Yeah, I think we're pretty close. You can kind of tell, how much the vets care, and I think that's a good start when your best players, your vets care as much as they do. It's only going to bring along the rest of the people, and yeah, that's what I've been most excited about. Guys like Q who've been here for a while to get these wins for them is awesome.
The Colts 2-0. Listen to me. They played 2 games in the National Football League, and they have yet to punt. Their punter is the luckiest guy on earth right now because he ain't worked in 2 weeks to get his money, but he's getting paid. The Colts have not punted. Danny Dimes has been, they're calling him Indiana Jones, by the way, but he has been fabulous early in the year. And you know what, man? It's good for him. Good for him, man. It took a lot of criticism and took a lot of heat. I guess it was justified playing in a city, man, where it's tough to play if you're not good. And so good for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, maybe Shane Steichen was right about Anthony Richardson, because you look at how Daniel Jones is operating that offense, and he has been fantastic. He's second right now in the league in passing yards, only behind Russell Wilson, who was outstanding in that game on Sunday. You look at success rate for Daniel Jones, he's leading the NFL at 61.5. Go to EPA per dropback as well. He's only behind Justin Herbert and Jared Goff. And then looking at EPA per play, he's only behind Josh Allen. Like, he has been a top 3 quarterback through 2 weeks only. But did we expect Daniel Jones through 2 weeks to be playing this well, and for the Indianapolis Colts to not have punted at all? Like, I like the offensive weapons that they have. I think Josh Downs is excellent. Michael Pittman Jr. is a good player. Alec Pierce is a good player. Tyler Warren so far has been on that Brock Bowers trajectory, the way he started off his career so far at that tight end position. Like, they have a good football team. All they needed is a quarterback who can operate the offense. And unfortunately for Richardson, he did not get nearly as much playing time as he should have gotten down in Gainesville. Should have stayed down there, just hindsight being 2020, for another season under Billy Napier. And maybe he would have been in a better position coming into the league, but he has not been able to stay healthy with the shoulder as a rookie. He hurt his thumb in the preseason. And like, it didn't even look like, as you mentioned, like there should have been a quarterback competition at all, because Daniel Jones has looked incredible. And my theory here is he thinks he's back at Duke. He's wearing number 17 again. If you look at the Colts jerseys, just go search Daniel Jones Duke and put a picture side by side with the Colts. It's the exact same jerseys. It's the blue, it's the white stripes on the shoulder pads. It's Nike who made them. So I just think he feels like he's back home in Durham, and that's why he's balling out the way he is. But good for him. Charlotte guy, Duke guy. Understand all that, but Charlotte guys, always happy to see another Charlotte guy go out there and have success. And been really cool. Fun story so far. We'll see if it lasts.
Yep, we got to keep our eye on it. We're going to keep our eye on Atlanta too, because Atlanta has been the worst team to get sacks over the last 20 years. That's 2 decades. All right, just go back and figure out where you were 20 years ago. That's how long they have been the worst at getting after quarterbacks. But they got after that rookie J.J. McCarthy last night in the late game and got out of there with a 22-6 win with a dominant defense. Here's my man, Aaron Freeman, with his ode to Michael Penix. He's got a do-rag on. He ain't got no hair, but he's just wearing this just to show some solidarity with my man, Michael Penix. He's going to tell you about the game last night.
It was a field goal fest for the Falcons as they beat the Vikings to get their first win of 2025. New Falcons kicker Parker Romo proved to be one of several heroes for the Falcons in their Week 2 win over Minnesota on Sunday night. He connected on 5 field goals as the Falcons offense struggled in the red zone, converting just 1 of 5 tries. But the struggles were only in the red zone for the Falcons offense as they dominated on the ground, rushing for over 218 yards, spearheaded by 153 rushing yards from Bijan Robinson. The defense also was anything but struggles, putting the clamps on the Vikings offense, sacking J.J. McCarthy 6 times, turning him over 3 times, including 2 interceptions. It was the rookies that shined brightest. Both rookie DBs, Billy Bowman and Xavier Watts, each snagged an interception. And you also had a sack from James Pierce and Jalen Walker. We'll see if the Falcons can build off of this win and get a win streak going next week in Week 3 against Carolina. For more coverage of the Falcons and this win, follow Locked On Falcons, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Falcons should be just like the Colts, 2-0 if they had a dude that could kick last week.
Yeah, I mean, and you talk about the defense as far as pressure percentage. They 53.3 in Week 2. Looking overall, they're 3rd in the NFL, 2nd this past week in Week 2 behind Buffalo with those 6 sacks. So that has been an issue. They decided enough is enough. They went out there and got James Pierce Jr. and also Jalen Walker in the first round to help them out defensively. And so far, so good for Atlanta. And Michael Penix Jr. didn't have to do a ton. The offense did not have to go out there and ball out against a very good Vikings defense or to win that game on Sunday night in Minnesota. So credit to Atlanta, who, now has Carolina, who's 0-2. So certainly a game that will be very winnable for the Falcons, and maybe they can get off to a good start and head in the right direction under year 2 of Raheem Morris as their head coach.
No doubt about it. The week is almost complete. We got a doubleheader tonight. I'll do a quick whip around here with you, Julian. Pick these games. Tampa Bay goes on the road against the Houston Texans in a very interesting matchup.
Yeah, kind of feels like I know it's only week 2, but kind of do or die in a way for the Texans, looking at how well the Colts and Daniel Jones have gotten off to a start. Don't want to be 0-2. I don't think Jacksonville is going to be a threat. Obviously, Tennessee is going to be the worst team in the league, it looks like, this year. So, kind of not a must win, but you certainly need to win that game. But I think I like Tampa in that game. And then, what do you got?
Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah. Man, great chance for the Chargers. Great chance for both these teams because KC's 0-2. So one of these teams, maybe, because there obviously is always the possibility of a tie, but one of these teams could be 2-0, 2 games above Kansas City. And if it's the Chargers especially, I would actually feel pretty good about them holding on to that division lead with already having a tiebreaker. And I believe, and that was I guess it was an LA home game, the game in Brazil, but already having a game in hand on them and then being potentially 2-0, 2 games above Kansas City to start out the season could be a great start. But obviously for Pete Carroll with Geno Smith, that they start off 2-0 as well. Can't hate that.
I think it's Houston, even though, if Tampa wins, it benefits me, but I'm going for Houston and the Chargers. I think the Chargers are legit, and I think they are for real. Something else that legit is Locked On NFL, this podcast. Make sure you tap in early in the morning and check out my man Tyler Rowland. He'll wake you up like a double shot of espresso, and he'll be talking about those 2 games I just mentioned here with Julian. All right, until next time, make sure y'all tap into Locked On Panthers, Locked On Jaguars, and Locked On Bengals. Going to be at it all day talking about Joe Burrow and the implications of his injury. All right, until tomorrow, you guys, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you later here on Locked On NFL.